Well, thank you all so much, and thank you, Professor Spogliari. I've talked about examples of rational choice in political science, so this was, for all the intro to comparative politics students, that was a great example. I'm surprised that I find you guys being in general optimistic about anything that's going on here. There is not a single theory that I can find in comparative politics that predicts that this is going to end well in liberal democracy. If you look at the correlation between economic development, if you look at levels of inequality, if you look at degree of social capital, if you look at the role of the middle class, if you look at any of the off-the-shelf theories we have about democracy, there's not a single one that predicts that this is going to go well. Two, and on Rob's point, you are right that 1848, I think quite right, entered in this long succession of Europe moving toward democracy, but let us not forget how incredibly turbulent and how violent it was. And ultimately, some people have argued that participation led to fascism. It led to really the collapse of the 19th century order incredibly bloodily. So I can't understand why we would be at all optimistic. I mean, given the variables that we know to matter for democracy, and given the instability of this region, that we would have cause for optimism here. But that's just me.
Can I just make a defense? I didn't think I was very optimistic. I actually thought I was pretty pessimistic. I actually said, look what we're left with: a divided left between social communists, a weak, feckless center, and an aggressive nationalism on the right.
You were right. I just wanted to get you back to me always picking winners.
Okay, I'm sorry.
I'll defend the optimism, though.
Okay. One last point. Sure. My optimism is just simply, it's a stage to get the public on the stage. To get the public onto the political stage is a stage, and then you're going to ride a tiger. Okay, you're going to ride a tiger, and the question is, you got to ride the tiger, and you got to go through the stage.
Well, yes. And I guess what I'd say to you about the 100 years and all kinds of horrible things, world wars, fascism, all's well that ends well. I guess that's basically the way. Look, of course there's going to be all kinds of horrible things.
Non-nuclear world.
Yeah, well, something has happened. Something has broken that was bankrupt, right? And it can't be put together again. It was bankrupt. It was in every way failing. That Arab development report you talked about, I think very nicely. Anybody who wants to understand what's happening there would do well to look at it. Bankrupt in every regard. Right? There's no hope forward under these regimes, none. Right? So the shattering is a positive act. Right? What comes next? I agree. All kinds of horrible things could happen. In some places, horrible things might happen. Right? But to me, the process of breaking out of a dead end and moving forward is, by definition, a progressive act. Doesn't mean that everything's going to be all rosy and happy and peaceful immediately. Of course not. But that's a path that has to be taken.
And if I could say something about optimism, I certainly am not at all convinced that Egypt or any of these other cases will go in the direction of liberal democracy. It's not yet a case of democratization at all. But I did say that some of these images, like the last one that's still up here, do provide some measure of hope at this point. Cairo, to me, never would have been a hopeful place before. Cairo was a place with many, many problems, continues to have almost all of those problems, and yet there was a coming together of many different interests here to end a dead-end regime. So that breaking of a pattern is, at least for me, some reason to hope that something good could come of it, but I'm not yet convinced that something good will come in the end.